Welcome to Come to Your Senses, the School of Sensual Living podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to live bravely and beautifully through pleasure, mindfulness, embodiment, femininity, beauty, art, and of course, everyday sensuality. Hello, friends and loves, and welcome back to the podcast. I am thrilled to be here today to talk to you about something that is really common for many of my friends and loved ones, is this thing I'm calling the great flip-flop, which as we are all navigating the experience of a very different lifestyle in quarantine than what we may be accustomed to, you may find yourself in this pattern of getting really low energy, feeling like you can't do anything other than watch TV all day. You feel aimless, dissociated, maybe you numb out with a box of cookies. And then on other days, you feel this burst of energy and ambition and maybe think you should take on writing that book you've always wanted to write or starting to macrame, and you ride that burst of energy until it runs out, and then you find your energy dipping down again. And this is not uncommon, not only during this time, but in general, inside a culture that focuses a lot on working hard and playing hard to compensate. And so today's episode is all about how to cultivate a sense of artful gentleness with yourself as you navigate these extremes or any extremes that may come your way. And so we're going to talk about what being gentle with yourself is and what it is not. It's really common to feel like, well, I don't need to be gentle with myself. I'm lazy enough as it is. I need to do more and achieve more. And the secret mystery of gentleness is that contrary to this conditioned belief that gentleness equals weakness, gentleness is actually a way that we can mother ourselves into greater sustainability, less fear, more of a capacity to take risks, and a greater sense of resilience and ability to bounce back when you meet challenges on the path of your dreams. I'm also going to share with you 5 ways that you can embody gentleness with yourself, beyond just a mental, cerebral concept of I should be more gentle with myself, but how you can shape and mold that inner dialogue to be more kind, more sympathetic, more human, and more benevolent. But before we dive into today's content, I want to take a moment to share with you a special invitation and ask you a couple of questions. Are you the type of person who goes weak in the knees when you see an elegant, beautiful dressing gown? Do you swoon over things like a beautiful shade of red lipstick, an exotic bottle of French perfume, or a sumptuous pair of high heels? Do you harbor a secret desire for a photo shoot of yourself wearing nothing but feathers on a fainting couch? Or do you find the world I'm describing simultaneously intimidating and intriguing, and it's something you've always yearned to explore but don't know how to begin? Well, if so, I would like to extend a VIP invitation to you to join us in September at the School of Sensual Living, where I'll be teaching a very special masterclass on glamour. So glamour is defined in many different ways. There are many ways to exhibit glamour, but how I define glamour is this energy that we call the feminine being expressed in tangible form, flamboyantly. And in our class, we're going to share with you ways to use glamour to bring more fabulousness, more fun, and more frivolity into your life. This masterclass is going to be taught alongside my good friend and inspiration, Julie Nelson, who is an incredible opera singer and knows how to enrich the lives of every person she comes across with her practice of glamour. In this masterclass, you're going to learn how to bring more glamour into your wardrobe, into your home, into simple practices like how you eat your breakfast or how you take a bath. Julie's going to teach you how to bring more of this healing, effervescent energy of glamour into your life using what you already have. So, no diamond earrings and Louboutins required unless you fancy. When you join, you also receive all the benefits of becoming a new member, which include bonus masterclasses, Q&A coaching calls, beauty parlor practices, and more. So if you'd like to join us, we would welcome you with satin gloves on and open arms. Head over to schoolofsensualliving.com/join now to join us today. Art of being gentle with yourself. I start with that word art very intentionally because when we look up the definition of art, we see words like emotionally vibrant, creative, beautiful, imaginative. And these are all qualities that I want for you and for myself in our lives. And gentleness is one of the ways that will get us there. So to begin, I want to talk about what gentleness is and what it isn't. Gentleness with yourself is not self-abandonment. It is not endorsing compulsive, reckless, harmful behavior in yourself. It is not a form of weakness. It is not a form of putting your head in the sand. And it's not a form of giving up your dreams. All things that we can confuse gentleness with, especially as it relates to our relationship with our inner voice and our inner self. And so by contrast, when we look at what gentleness is, these are some of the synonyms for gentle. And as I read these, I want you to just think about the voice that tucks you into bed at night, or that zooms to your to-do list first thing when you wake up in the morning, or that floods in when you make a mistake, or you've done something that you feel embarrassed about. So gentle, another word for gentle, is kind, humane, merciful, forgiving, considerate, understanding, compassionate, tender, loving, serene, peaceful. And a piece of feedback that I've received from several clients and friends that I really cherish is that they say, Mary, when I'm with you, I feel so calm and I can just slow down and I feel like I can just be myself. And it's an extraordinary compliment. And what I attribute it to is the tremendous amount of work that I've done in my life to reorient to an inner dialogue with myself that is gentle and loving and humane and sympathetic, all of those adjectives that we just described. And I want to say that that kind of inner voice doesn't really come natural to me. I'm pretty hardwired for anxiety and vigilance, and having grown up Catholic, shame and guilt. Sometimes I feel shame and guilt for just breathing. I can't speak for anyone else in the Catholic experience, but I know for me that religious conditioning really cut deep and created an inner dialogue that was really, really harmful. And I've done a lot of work and picked up a lot of tools for how to adapt my inner dialogue to sound a little bit more in the cadence of Julie Andrews in the role of Fraulein Maria in The Sound of Music. And what I'd like to share with you now are 5 of those gems that you can take with you and slip into your own pouch of wisdom. So number 1 is, when it comes to gentleness with yourself, a practice to adopt is to celebrate everything. And I remember one time working at a very corporate job, and I made a really big fat mistake, like an expensive mistake. And I was really in the doghouse at the office. And at the time, I was a student at Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, which was really kind of the first step on my path to sensuality and pleasure and a different way of living. And one of the tools at Mama Gina's is called the womanly art of having fun no matter what. And so I'm sitting there in the office, and I'm in the doghouse big time. And I just made a decision, I can spend the rest of the day and the rest of the month with my tail tucked, beating myself up every minute of the day, or I can take a different path. And on my way home, I stopped and I got an expensive bottle of champagne and a beautiful box of chocolates. And I got home, and I was married at the time, and my husband said, "What are we celebrating?" And I said, "We are celebrating the fact that I will never make that mistake again. I have learned a really powerful lesson today, and now I know, go me." And I just have to say that somatic experience of telling and teaching my body, hey, you made a mistake. Actually, that's proof that you listened to yourself and you took a risk, and that's a really good thing. So we're going to celebrate now. Rather than you took a risk, you made a mistake, 1 month of punishment in the doghouse created such a different neural pathway inside my mind and inside my body. So that's jewel number 1, celebrate everything. Jewel number 2 is to discover who is one of your gentleness icons. So one night I was tucking myself into bed, and I was very aware of that voracious wolf of self-criticism just roving through my mind with all the things I didn't do that day, or all the things I should have done differently, and all the ways I was messing up my life. And I just took a moment and I thought, what would it be like if instead of this voracious wolf tucking me into bed, Julie Andrews was tucking me into bed? And as I've shared before, she's really kind of one of my icons of this mothering, gentle, honey, you did your best, you did great, unconditional love kind of figures. And as I started to consider that, a level of tension that I was holding in my body that I wasn't even aware of began to release through my belly and through my heart and through my pelvis. And so for you, your gentleness icon might be a friend or a loved one or your pet or a celebrity or a deity. And what you'll notice is that with practice, that gentleness that you hear in your deity or your pet's or your icon's voice will start to show up in your own inner voice. So a great example is earlier today, a friend sent me a photograph, and it was a photograph, they didn't know this, but it was just a very, very painful time in my life. And at that moment, I was sitting at my computer preparing to record this podcast. And after I saw the photograph, I suddenly became so tired and so exhausted, and I just felt like I wanted to go lay down, and the rebellious teenager took over, and I felt like I had no ability to executively function. And I didn't even connect it to seeing the photograph. I just suddenly felt this mysterious fatigue come over me, and so put one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart, closed my eyes. Okay, sweetie, what's going on? There's something going on in there. I feel it, I sense it. What's happening? And in that moment of slowing down and being gentle with myself, it was like, oh, well, when this sensation started to happen was right after I saw that photograph. Okay, so a part of me got really triggered. What does that part of me need? Let's take care of you. And it took maybe 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden my energy returned, and here I am recording with you. And I can't think of a better way to articulate the way that this idea that gentleness is a form of weakness is just a myth. Because if I had just kept going or kept pressing myself harder, I would have been on the couch within an hour, or acting out and soothing this mysterious fatigue in some other way. But because I just took that 3-minute pause, it gave my whole system a chance to recalibrate. And so when you notice that gripping or the voracious wolf or a mysterious fatigue, invitation to just hand on heart, hand on belly. What's going on, sweetheart? What's happening in there? And meeting whatever comes up with as much gentleness as you can muster. Number 3 is to look for the space between the extremes. So I talked a little bit at the start about these 2 extremes that so many of us flip-flop to and from each day. And these extremes can take on a lot of different shapes. And inside of me, how these 2 energies appear, one of the ways they appear, is through these 2 characters that I like to call Mama Rose and Rebellious Teen. Mama Rose, I think of the Mama Rose character in the movie Gypsy, is a very hypercritical stage mom who is always pushing me, is always shoving me into the spotlight before I'm ready, is always making me tap dance until my toes bleed, and it's just never enough to satisfy her. On the other side of the spectrum, I have the rebellious teenager who wears combat boots and a flannel tied around her waist and cutoffs. She's very grunge era, black eyeliner, kind of dripping down the lower lid. The rebellious teenager is one big screw you. She doesn't want to make my bed. She doesn't want to eat real food. She just wants to eat potato chips and cookies. She doesn't care about having balanced meals or taking care of myself. She doesn't want to wash her face and her makeup off at night. She just wants to say screw it and abandon all responsibilities. And so how do we cultivate a bit of gentleness when these 2 very strong personalities are at the wheel? And one of the ways is to pay really close attention to your thoughts, and not just what is being said in your thoughts, but how it's being said. So for example, time to take the trash out from my place of gentleness comes out very differently when stage mom has the microphone and says, take the trash out. If I'm feeling tired and I think, I don't want to make my bed. Much different tone than wailing, whiny teenager, I don't want to make my bed. Ugh. The beautiful thing about this practice is that when we can observe our thoughts, it's a way for our system to recognize, even if it's just for a second, that we are not our thoughts. That our thoughts are simply that. They're thoughts. And it's important to recognize that with both the critic and the rebel, both of these are responses rooted in fear. And they're a way to numb myself or yourself or anyone's self to the very human experience of just being present and being here inside a body. It's a way we can zoom into our head and not have to feel. And so by carefully and curiously observing our thoughts, it's a way to bring an energy of gentle observation and individuation where you are not your critical inner stage mom. You are not just your rebellious teenager. You're something much more rich, more complex, and more resourced, which is a whole human being. Number 4 is a little practice I like to call sweetening the pot. So, something that I could do an entire podcast episode on, and I probably will, is a concept called negativity bias. And it's this idea that because the more primal protective part of our brain, the part that roves for danger and insecurity and what could go wrong or what's going to go wrong, because that part of the brain has not evolved at the same pace as our cognitive brain and as our outer world, what happens is that even in moments of relative safety, there is still this constant searchlight looking for what's wrong, what could go wrong, and using this vital and precious gift of our human imagination to project what's wrong and look at life in the negative. And how this might show up for you is not just a constant feeling in the pit of your stomach, but like a low grade chronic level of anxiety, a tendency at the end of the day to only look at what you've not done that day instead of all the things that you have done. And so this practice of sweetening the pot, I want you to imagine as a metaphor making a big batch of chocolate-covered pretzels. And you've got all the salty, delicious, crisp pretzels laid out on a baking sheet, and you're ready to drizzle them with a warm, gooey chocolate ganache. And you realize, oh no, I'm low on chocolate, and so you only have one square. So you melt that little one square and you drizzle it over this big baking dish full of salty pretzels. And just considering what the result of that is going to be when you bite into one of those pretzels is it's going to taste real salty and real pretzely, but lacking that balance and that deliciousness that the sweetness of chocolate provides. And so sweetening the pot is a simple practice of looking at your life if you were able to remove these glasses of your negativity bias, even if it's just for a second. So as an example, when I was recording this podcast, I actually recorded it a couple of times. I'm new to podcasting, and so sometimes I'll record an episode and listen back to it and refine and re-record until I get it right. And I had recorded and re-recorded, and finally I got it down, and then it was edited, and so many hours went into this episode. And as I'm about to export it, I pressed the wrong button, and poof, it was gone forever. And so it gave me a real opportunity to practice what I preach with being gentle with myself. And here I sit, recording this episode once again, and my negativity bias tells me, I'm such an idiot. I'm not going anywhere in my life or my career. How could this have happened? I'm wasting all these hours. And that's one way to look at it. And that's the conditioned mind, taking control, trying to protect. And then if I remove those glasses, I think of them as like old man in the 70s kind of glasses with the thick frames and the thick lenses. And I put on a little bit more of a petite cat eye, and I look at the sound of my voice scrolling across the screen, recording to you, and it occurs to me, what a gift, first of all, that I have something to say. I know that there are a lot of people out there, and I have been one of them for the last 5 years, who have thought, I should start a podcast, but what would I say? And I am astounded by the gift of being able to open my mouth and hit record and having something come out. I am astounded by the gift of listeners, and that there are actually people who listen and care. And this is just one example of what happens when we take off those lenses of negativity and allow the cat eye lenses of sweetness and abundance and gratitude to come in. Not in order to get a spiritual Girl Scout badge. You know, I have done gratitude lists over and over and felt nothing, because it was like the good spiritual girl thing to do. And what I'm encouraging here is a little bit different. What I'm encouraging is not that you try to gaslight yourself out of your pain with a sugar-coated layer of gratitude, but a simple sacred pause to remove that filter of negativity, knowing that it's there as a really intelligent part of your system that just kind of hasn't caught up to current times, and gently offering it a different bone to chew on as you offer it some sweetness and some appreciation for your life. And the final gem in the art of being gentle with yourself is a little gem that I picked up from a coach that I follow named Tanya Lee. And this is a practice called yes and. So when you catch yourself having a negative thought or having a self-critical thought, or that voracious wolf is on board, kind of like I talked about in the previous gem, trying to instantly redirect to gratitude and appreciation can sometimes create a little bit of a whiplash. So for example, if I try to meet "I'm so lazy and I'm going nowhere" with "I'm an important person with things to do in this world," or some other kind of affirmation, it's like those are two opposing thoughts. And what happens for my mind is that the pendulum swings so far in the opposite direction that it gives me an experience of dissonance rather than confidence. And a way to intercept that is to say yes and. So for example, if I'm procrastinating and sitting on the couch, "I'm so lazy, I feel so lazy," and every moment is a new moment. Every moment is an opportunity to start again. If I'm having a thought of someone in my past, of someone who wronged me or betrayed me or didn't meet my needs, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Yes, and they're a human being, wonderfully imperfect, just like me. If I have a moment where I lose my voice and I can't articulate my truth, and that voracious wolf comes in, starting to call me names of meek and weak and "How have you been working on this for 25 years and you're not getting anywhere, or you still have moments like this?" Yeah, I had that moment, and I'm still learning. I'm a work in progress, and nothing is wasted in the school of learning how to live this one precious life. So, my loves, those are your 5 gems for helping to transform your inner dialogue to become one that is more gentle, more supportive, more humane, and more loving. And my prayer is that these tools, as they help you create a more loving and gentle dialogue with your inner self, have a ripple effect so that we may all have just even a teaspoon more loving gentleness with each other. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would be so honored and delighted if you would leave me a review. You can go to schoolofsensualliving.com/review for instructions on how to do that. And I so look forward to seeing you for a month of glamour inside the membership, schoolofsensualliving.com for all the details. See you next time. For more tools, inspiration, and community in the art of sensual living, head over to schoolofsensualliving.com. There you'll find a free course in how to embody genuine confidence through the secrets of powerful feminine body language. Go to schoolofsensualliving.com/confidence to check it out today.